Hello friends of Sudoku and welcome to an evil puzzle, and today again it is from sudoku.com. I copied the grid over to sudokuexchange.com. This is an evil puzzle and I fully expect it to be quite difficult. So I'm lucky that I found the first digit and it's a 2. The 2 here blocks this cell. The 2 here blocks these two cells. Therefore, a 2 for this box and therefore for this column must go in one of these two cells, right? So a goes 2 here and a 2 here, and the 2 here blocks all of these cells from being a 2. Therefore, this cell must be a 2. And there is an even easier 2 to be found for this cell up here because of the 2 here that blocks all of these cells. The 2 here blocks all of these cells, and the 2 here blocks these cells. So the 2 must go here. This cell must be a 5 because we've got the 5 here and the 5 here, and they block these cells. So this 5 was pretty easy. Now one of these two cells will have to be a 5. And the other will have to be a 9 because this 9 blocks these cells and this 9 blocks these cells, making this a 9. So now we have a 9 here and a 9 here. And that means that one of these two cells must be a 9 in addition to one of those being a 5, leaving a 3, 6, and a 7 for this cell, and this cell. And of course, the 7 can't go here. So this is a 3 or a 6. We need to find homes for the 2, 3, 5, 7, and a 9 in these cells. And we already have placed the 2, 5, 7, and the 9. We just need to find a place for the 3, don't we? And it can't go here because of this 3. So therefore, this cell must be a 3. We have an 8 for row 2. We have an 8 for row 3. We need to find a place for an 8 in row 1. And the only place it can go is here because this cell and these 3 cells are blocked by this 8 and this 8. Therefore, this cell must be an 8. And now one of these two cells must be an 8. And by the way, this cell must be a 1. I'm just noticing because of the 1 here and the 1 here. And as I was going to mention, one of these two cells will have to be a 1. One of these two cells will have to be an 8. And the other one will have to be a 2, won't it? Because of the 2 here and the 2 here. So these two cells now are 2 and 8. And that makes these 3 cells 4, 6, and 7, except for the 4, of course, can't go here. And the 7 can't go here, so this is a 4 or a 6, and this is a 6 or a 7. Oh, there's a 6 already here, so this cell must be a 7. So now these two cells have to be a 4 and a 6. And this cell up here must be a 4, and this cell here must be a 6. And that solves quite a few cells, I think, because we have a 6 here already. Therefore, this is a 4, this is a 6, and this is now a 4, making this a 6. That was neat. And we got the 6 here, and the 6 here, and the 6 here, and together they block all of these cells, leaving just this cell for a 6. And now we have an X-wing on 6s, the 6 here, and the 6 here. Puts a 6 in this cell or in this cell, and the 6 here and the 6 here puts a 6 in this cell or in this cell. So these cells here constitute an X-wing on 6s. I don't know if that's going to be a help or not, but it's something that I always notice when I come across them. But these two cells have to be a 1 and a 6 because we have a 1 and a 6 already in this column. We have a 1 and a 6 already in this column, so these have to be a 1 and a 6. And that makes these two a 4 and a 9, and the 4 must go here because of the 4. over here, of course, and this is now a 9. We need to find a 4 for this row, and the 4 can't go here because of this 4, and the 4 can't go here either because of the 4 up here. Therefore, this is a 4. And these two 4s and the 4 here, they block all of these cells, don't they? So this cell must be a 4. I notice that a 1 and a 5 will have to go in these 3 cells somewhere because of the 1 here and the 1 here. One of these cells must be a 1, and because of the 5 here and the 5 in one of these 2 cells. But even though we only have 2 givens in this block 3, we can find a 4 because we've got the 4 here, here, and here, and they block these cells, all of them. So this is a 4. And now this cell must be a 4 because we already have a 4 for this row and for this row. And I believe that this cell must be a 7. Let me retrace that. Strange logic. Didn't we just say that a 5 will have to go in one of these cells here? Therefore, this cell cannot be a 5. It cannot be a 1, 2, 3, 4 either, nor can it be a 6. And it can be a 7, but not an 8 and not a 9. Yes, it's a 7. That was nice. I'm looking at the 7s and the 5s because they are beginning to get somewhat limited in where they can go. Let me look, for example, at this cell here because we have an intersection of a row and a column with quite a few givens. This cell can be a 1, but not a 2, 3, 4. It could be a 5, not a 6, 7, 8, or 9. Yes, as I thought, a 1 or a 5. And we know that this cell and this cell, of course, have to be a 5 and a 7. So this is a 1, 5, 7. And we can't have a 5 here either. So what can we have? We can have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a 7, but not an 8 or a 9. So we've got a 5 or a 1 here, 5 or a 7 here, 1 and a 7 here. And one of the things I remember from watching tons of Cracking the Cryptic videos online was Simon talking about a bent triple. I forgot what kind of a wing it is, if it's an X wing, XY wing, or whatever wing it is. It's called a bent triple. The triple being a 1, 5, a 5, 7, and a 1, 7. So a 1, 5, and a 7 in this triangular shape. If they were all in the same column, then there would be no problem because we knew we would have a triple. Now, Simon has adopted this bent triple, which is kind of a nice expression for this. And let's see what this can lead to, because I think it leads to something interesting, at least for this puzzle. So just to explain what I'm talking about this cell here, and I'm talking about this cell here, and this cell here. This is a 1 or a 5. This is a 5 or a 7. And this is a 1 or a 7. And that is a bent triple. So to elaborate, I will mark this cell, and I will mark this cell, and I will mark this cell. This is a 1, 5. This is a 5, 7. And this is a 1, 7. So let's assume that this is a 5. If this is a 5, then this obviously cannot be a 5, and it must be a 7. If this is a 7, it's blocking these 2 cells. And this 7 up here is also blocking these 3 cells. Therefore, this cell must be a 7. If this is not a 5, then it's a 1. And since this cell here is a 1 or a 7, then again it must be a 7. So we can now safely enter a 7 into this cell. And my thanks goes to Simon for having explained all of this in quite a number of videos. And that is exactly why I remember, and I will never forget his explanation of how a bent triple works. Today it helped me. That still, of course, leaves a 5 or a 7 and a 5 or a 7 for these two cells. But that's besides the point, because now I have this 7 down here, and now I know that one of these two cells will have to be a 7. The three empty cells in this row have to be a 1, 8, and a 9. They look quite conspicuous because the 8 here puts an 8 here or here, and the 1 here puts the 1 here or here, and one of these has to be a 9. No, I can't figure out what to do with them just now. But here's one of the usual patterns. Sometimes I catch them immediately, sometimes it takes a while, but there is a 3 and a 7 for these two rows. There's a 3 and a 7 for the same two rows in this block. So these two blocks already have a 7 and a 3 for row 8 and 9. Now for this block, we need to find a 3 and a 7 for this cell and for this cell. We don't know where they go yet. What's more important though is that I now know that these cells have to be a 1, 2, 6, and an 8. And since a 6 can't go here or here, and the 6 blocks this cell, then this must be a 6 and this therefore a 1. And because these cells are 7 and a 3, and this cell blocks these cells, we know that this is a 1. And that makes this cell a 1 because we now have the cell here and here pointing towards these cells here. And the 1 here blocks this one. Now one of these cells will have to be a 1. This is now an 8 or a 9. And I think it must be a 9 because there's an 8 here that blocks these two cells, and the 8 here blocks this cell. So one of these two cells will have to be an 8, and therefore this cell cannot be an 8, and therefore it must be a 9, and this must now be an 8. And I think we are close to breaking this puzzle now because the 9 here and the 9 here block these cells, and the 9 here blocks this cell, so this cell must be a 9, and these cells, as we remember, have to be a 5 and a 9. Now this 9 here puts a 9 in this cell and therefore a 5 in this one. Now the 5 here and here, of course, gives us, finally, a 5 for this row and therefore a 7 for this in column 9. And these two cells have to be 1 and a 5 now because we have a 1 here and a 5 here, and we have a 1 here and a 5 here. So these are 5 and 9. And that makes this an 8 and this a 3, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think I am. And then, of course, this must be a 7, and that makes this a 7. This is now a 3 and a 6. Let's see what else we can do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 6, 7, 8 to be found for these cells. 3, 7, 6 here. So this is an 8. And now these two cells have to be a 6 and a 7. And there is a 6 already in this row. So the 7 must go here and the 6 here. And that leaves us with the 3 for this cell. And of course, one of these two cells now has to be an 8, and it cannot be this cell here because of the 8 in this row already. So the 8 goes here and the 2 goes here. Now this is a 2 and a 1. Now this is a 2 and a 1, and this is going to be a 3 and a 5. Up here we still had the 3 and the 6, so, and the 1 and the 5. So what are these three? They have to be a 2, 3, and an 8. And because of the 8 here and the 8 here, this must now be an 8, and this is a 2 or a 3, making this a 3 and this a 2 because we have the 3 already that blocks this cell. And that makes this a 3, doesn't it? And this is now a 3 here, and that is a 6. And that makes this a 6. and this must now be a 2, making this a 2, and the last one here, if I recall, was a 1. Goes here, and that gives us a 1 for up here, and the last digit here must be a 5. Putting a 5 in this cell and a 5 in this cell, 1 here, and a 9 here. That was a tough puzzle. But I think what broke the camel's back here was finding the bent triple, because as soon as we got the 7, we also got the 7 and the 3 pair up here, and that more or less resolved this row. I hope that you enjoyed this. For once, this was an interesting puzzle of the evil variety, and I really enjoyed solving it. I hope you did too, and I hope to see you back here for more soon. Bye for now, and thank you for watching.